Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University, with undergraduate and graduate programs part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. Community organizers have played an important role in our society for decades. How has the role changed over the years, and is that role as influential now as it once was? We're taking a look at that today in advance of a weekend conference observing 40 years of community organizing and engagement here. It's sponsored by the St. Louis Association of Community Organizations, SLACO. Joining me in studio are Kevin McKinney, SLACO's executive director, and Richard Reilly. He's a photojournalist well acquainted with St. Louis protest actions and other things. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's great seeing you, Don.
Thanks for having us.
Kevin, let me start with you and ask for your definition of what organizing is today, organizing and engagement.
Yeah, I think organizing is the key to getting things done. One-on-one, we can have some nice conversations, but if we get a group of people involved in the conversation, I think more things will get done. So I think organizing, bringing a group of people together to work on one issue or several issues as a group as opposed to an individual, and engaging is then engaging a community or engaging a group or engaging a group of people to get their ideas, to hear what they feel about a particular issue, and then organizing ourselves to get that accomplished.
Are people as committed to that today as they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 40 years ago?
Oh, I think even more. I think that I think in 40 years ago, there was a need to organize and engage over particular issues, and we're seeing that same thing today, even more with the social media that's out there. Organizing and engaging is the key to progress.
How do you see it?
Well, I think there are great complexities in the contemporary world that are different with the addition of social media, et cetera. And I think by and large, those things add very important ways for folks to voice their experiences. And when we do that through enhanced and increased organization, it's for the betterment of the entire community in the long run.
Rich, how have you seen it change over the years?
I think that from the time when I was a little kid here in St. Louis during the Vietnam War through the present, there's been a steady amount of activism and getting together to support important causes. And I think there's been something of a crescendo of organization and activism around civil rights issues since 2014 when Mike Brown was killed that have been important sparks in conversations and changes that need to happen in our region.
Kevin, what's the big issue today?
The big issue today, it depends, what community or neighborhood you're living in, but generally people want to be a part of solving the problem. Whatever the problem happens to be, they don't want one person telling them what's going to happen. They don't want two people telling them what's going to happen. They want to be a part of solving the particular problem that's in that community. Obviously, in St. Louis, we're still a divided city, and we're trying to bridge the Del Mar divide by a bunch of different programs and projects and communications. But the big issue today is, people want to feel good about their neighborhoods. People want to feel that their neighborhoods are being respected and that they are being respected. So it's trying to allow a lot of different people's voices to be heard, and that's what we're not getting, and that's what people are kind of scared of that their voice is not being heard.
What about tactics? How have they changed? I mean, we can talk about militant examples. We can talk about some that are much more benign, peaceful, if you will.
Well,
what's most effective?
I have been an elected official in a small town, and I've seen it from inside as well as outside, and it takes change. It takes people like Richard who are out in the street, out demonstrating, out protesting, but it also takes people that are in the system to make the system change. And I think that's one thing that we're seeing now. We're seeing people who have been in the streets, people who have been demonstrating and protesting, now trying to become a part of the system to make those changes. If you don't vote, if you don't make the change, the system's going to stay the same. So the idea is, if you've got some good ideas that you're trying to work on, the only way you're going to make those changes is to get some new people in some of those leadership positions. And that's where I see some of the big changes coming about, that we've got a lot of young people that are getting involved in politics. They want to be the change agents that we need, and that's very important. From my standpoint, I think that people like Richard, as a photojournalist, he's going to be a very important voice to hear from at our conference that's coming up. We're going to have an actual lunch and learn that's going to be called Fake News or Not, the Role of the Media in Organizing and Engagement. So we're going to hear from media people on what they feel and how they feel the media should or maybe should not be a part in organizing. I was sitting in the green room talking with Richard, and I can remember as a kid when the dogs and the water cannons were released on the kids down in Mississippi. That was a turning point in the civil rights movement. People had been seeing pictures, photos of lynchings, and people say, well, that's just the way it is in those days. But when they saw those kids on the news being bitten by dogs and the water cannons, people said, we can't stand this. We've got to make this change. So the media, in that particular instance, played a big part in making changes.
I've heard it said so many times, where would the civil rights movement have gone, or where would we be now if it weren't for the cameras, the television cameras in the 60s, Bull Connor and his dogs, and the Pettus Bridge.
That's right.
No cameras, no movement.
No movement.
Yeah.
No movement. And so I think here with the photojournalists, with social media activists, even with the networks, radio stations, we need to know, are you going to report what goes on accurately? Are you going to help tell the story? Are you just going to get along and continue to not make a difference? I think the media has a responsibility, obviously, to tell the truth, but they've got a responsibility to report what goes on. And in a lot of instances, in neighborhoods and communities, they're not reporting everything that should be reported. They only report bits and pieces, and I think we're missing a lot. And I know neighborhoods are saying, hey, listen, if you'll get out here and talk about some of these vacancy issues that we're dealing with, people will see that, they'll hear about it, they'll know what's going on. So I think the media, my own personal opinion is that the media does have a role in organizing and engagement, but I want the professionals to talk to our people at the conference to find out how they feel.
The conference is on Saturday, and Richard, you're going to be on the panel, as I understand it, talking. Pick up on the point, as you see the role of journalism in general and photography in particular.
Sure. I think one of the important issues to think of when thinking about photography, and I work primarily independently. My stuff's been published by several outlets, but primarily I'm interested in photographing the frontline protesters, the people in the protest community, and showing them at work in ways in which I don't feel like most of mainstream media does. And with still photography in particular, as well as video, it can be very difficult to properly understand the meaning, quote unquote, of the images if they are anchored with text that doesn't come from the sources that are within the images themselves. And so I think a big part of, say, my photographic work is to deliver it to the frontline protesters, because it's what it means to them that those of us in the community really need to know, and really have a hard time coming to find out what it is that is inspiring them to take to the streets.
Kevin, you mentioned social media a little while ago, and I can see certainly how that can be helpful to any cause in terms of communication, but it can also work against you. I mean, do you find that is happening now, that the opposition, if you will, can have its voice heard?
Well, I think that what happens in a lot of instances, especially when you talk about, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, there's actually been videos of people being killed, police officers doing shootings or what have you, people being killed, and the video doesn't matter. I mean, it is as if the video that they've seen doesn't matter. It doesn't prove a point. The guy gets shot and it's on video, and they say he was running away from the police officer. The video shows it, and then they say the policeman says, but the guy was threatening me. So people are saying, like, so what does the video really, it doesn't have any meaning. So it can work against you, but I think that goes into the system. We have to change the system. We have to change the rules and the regulations and the way things are interpreted. If you come in with some video that shows somebody actually getting killed, that ought to have some value, as opposed to just being purged out and say, well, it doesn't really matter, So the video, the social media can work against you, but I think without the social media, a lot of these common causes wouldn't be heard. You got to have it.
Richard, do you agree with Kevin that the video doesn't matter in the cases that he's? I would take exception to that. I think it's like the Pettus Bridge situation. People are seeing it. There are some people who are not going to accept it, but look, it's really created quite a movement in this country.
Well, I think that what the issue is that there is a good-sized group to whom the video does not matter, because their allegiances to a set of ideas goes beyond what's in front of their face in the video. Now, fortunately, in the case of the Pettus Bridge or other things that have happened more recently, video has helped some folks in power see and act on the basis of what's in the film or what's in the pictures.
Yeah, but Don, you look at for an example, the video where the gentleman got killed in New York for selling cigarettes. He got choked by the guard.
Right? Yeah.
He got choked by the police. The video was there. They took the video. They showed the police doing what they did. It was there, but they didn't. They couldn't convict the police officers. So did the video really help? The video opened up our eyes to see what's going on and makes us as people more aware, but it didn't convict the police officer. It didn't do anything to convict the police officer.
It outraged a lot of people.
It outraged a lot of people.
Came to the cause, if you will, as a result of it.
Right. So, I mean, it had some positives, but the police officer in that particular instance is still walking around, as if so he says to himself, I can shoot a guy, I can do what I want to. They can video it. It still don't matter.
What our conversation has kind of evolved to a discussion about militancy on the streets. And there's an awful lot of organizing that goes on that deals with problems that don't require a militant approach. Neighborhood issues, for instance. I mean, that's where the real backbone, spine of the organized movement lies.
Without a doubt. I mean, the issues that we're dealing with in St. Louis, for example, right now is the vacancy. Vacancy issues is one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with. And so if I just individually talk to people about a particular house that's been vacant for 5 or 6 or 7 years, it's an eyesore, maybe I get some conversation. But if 20 of us sit down and strategize on how we can make something happen, there's going to be some movement from the electeds when they hear from 20 people as opposed to one. And how the video would work in that particular instance is Richard takes still photos of people standing in front of the vacant house. Videographers are taking videos of us having meetings and what we're talking about. And then we actually share that with the decision makers. This is the problem. These are 20 people that are trying to work on it. Here you can see them working on it. And they share that with the electeds. That's the kind of thing that's going to get their movement.
How does SLACO work? In other words, if there is a neighborhood or portion of the community that has a problem, how does SLACO get involved?
We serve as a facilitator. We're kind of the Switzerland in St. Louis, if you will. We don't endorse candidates. We're very issue-oriented, and we endorse issues, and we support issues, but we don't support candidates. But what we try to do is bring people together to discuss the problems that they're having, and then we advocate for them, and we'll work with them to get their elected official to decide on making some kind of progress or change. But we're more of a facilitator. We've got, out of the 79 neighborhoods that are formally recognized by the city of St. Louis, we have 31 of them that are in our association. So we come together, we meet periodically. We have a board of directors of 15 members, and we pick up different ideas from our members on what issues they want us to deal with, and we work with them to try to accomplish a change for those issues.
Richard, what is the most effective result of organizing that you've seen over the years?
Well, I think there's been quite a number of things. I think for me it might be some of the things that have come about in St. Louis from stuff related to housing. I think that some of the work, and I guess it's hard to say, it's hard to put it into the kind of words I really want to, but when I think of the hundreds of homes that Habitat for Humanity has built and what sort of an organizing extravaganza that has been, and how fortunate I was to be involved in that for a long time, I see real progress with grassroots organizing and a lot of volunteer effort.
What do you think SLACO's biggest success has been over the years, Kevin?
Well, I tell you, SLACO's been at this for over 40 years now. I've been with the organization for about 3 years. I tell you, one of the biggest successes was the very first group that organized when they had a SLAC landlord that wasn't keeping his property up. And Father Jerry Kleba organized a group of people that cleaned up the mess, took it to his house and dumped it on his yard and told him this is the kind of thing we're dealing with over here in the Visitation neighborhood. And the landlord came in, started cleaning it up. That was the very first demonstration of organizing and engagement that the group did. And we've sprung from that. I think we were able to shut down some of the 40-ounce bottles that beer manufacturers were doing around St. Louis. They don't do 40 ounces anymore because of a SLACO movement. And the Prop NS issue has been very successful. SLACO supported the petitioners, and we supported the Vacant Housing Initiative. That was very important. And then Neighborhoods United for Change. I mean, after the death and the killing of Mike Brown, people came together to start talking about how we can better serve our communities by talking with each other. So the Neighborhoods United for Change has been a very successful program.
No shortage of things ahead.
No, we got plenty. We got plenty of work. But you can find out more about SLACO at the conference coming up.
I'm just going to read that information now. The Regional Neighborhoods Conference celebrating 40 years of community organizing and engagement, held all day this Saturday at St. Louis Community College at Forest Park. Anybody welcome?
Yes, anybody's welcome. You can register online at slaco23.eventbrite.com. That's $35 at the door is $45, and we have a $25 youth with ID program as well.
We'll put that information on our website at stlpublicradio.org.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin McKinney, for being with us, and Richard Reilly, thank you. Keep up the good work, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.